everybody. Thanks for joining us for our first session at Davos 2026. We set this up as actually the beginning of our conversations because it flows from the space that you're in. We are at the Hub Culture Icon. This is the second year that this building has appeared here in Davos. And for us, it's at Hub Culture a very important symbol of the both potential and possibility of urban design, of architectural design, and its connection to nature and biophilia. So we wanted to have a conversation today looking at the future of urban design and biophilic design in the context of architecture. So joining me today are two really great people who I'll introduce in a second, Tony Cho and Alex. And Alex, you have one of the more difficult last names, Zagrebelny. Thank you. So Alex, by the way, is a developer of Eywa, which is the world's most health-conscious and longevity-focused buildings. They're building an incredible project in Dubai, and we're going to learn a little bit about his vision for the future of architecture in a few moments. And Tony Cho has been a longtime partner of Hub. We worked together in Sharm el-Sheikh with Future of Cities. He's a placemaker. He's an author. He has a new book just out on Regeneration. And he's the founder of Future of Cities and the Chosen Retreat. I've been to Chosen. It's up in northern Florida, just outside of Jacksonville, and is one of the most beautiful places in the United States. Absolutely magical retreat, embedded deep within nature. And this idea of the connection between nature and the built environment is really what we're going to get into today. And it's why we've called our session Ancient Future. If you look behind me, you can see a little image of the icon, the building that we're in. And it is really a mobile hub for the 21st century. It's a regenerative building. It's made of compressed laminate timber that was basically pressed, and it's as strong as concrete, and it's almost inflammable. So you would tend to think of wood as being something that would easily catch fire, but when you have CLT, it actually becomes very anti-flammable. And this wood could last 100 years. This building could last 100 years. But in this case, it's only going to last 2 weeks, because when Davos is done, we're going to pack it up and put it away. And this building can move and regenerate in different places based on our desires. So it really is an incredible structure. It has steel screws instead of a foundation, so it goes directly into the earth, but when it leaves the earth, there's absolutely zero footprint. There are a lot of other things that we're doing around sustainability and regenerative thinking here with this building, especially in the way it's used, both for community development as well as community experience. Excuse me. When we think about Hub, if you look at our logo up there, we think of it as the icon. It is an icon. And nature surrounding infrastructure with commons at the core and the center. So this building is a reflection of our principles, and our principles are reflected in the building. So that's enough about us. What I'd really like to do is have a conversation with you two about the future of urban design and how ancient traditions, ancient thinking is informing both of your work. I'd like to begin with Tony for a quick word on that. Then we're going to go to Alex, and Alex is going to show us a video about his work in Dubai, and then we'll get into the bigger picture. So Tony, let's start with you.
Thanks. I don't think this is on. Hello, hello. Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. Good morning. How are we feeling today? Okay, I'm not convinced. How are we feeling? All right, we're alive. We've got a live one here. It's an honor to be back in Davos. I was here during the pandemic in May. It was much warmer with Stan, and I've been really grateful to be a partner with Hub Culture all over the world. And Stan has been to my retreat center, and so has Alex, which is very meaningful for me because I grew up in a commune that my grandmother started in the 70s. So this is a multi-generational project that is really a cradle-to-cradle concept on regeneration on a 22,000 acre nature preserve. And so growing up, in that environment has informed both the community aspect of what I do as well as the nature aspect of what I do. And I was talking to Pam and Paul earlier about that and how we just are in the most lonely, disconnected time in human history. And I think one of the antidotes to that is the reconnection with nature and the reconnection with community. And so one of the principles that we incorporate at the Future of Cities, which is our think tank and real estate development company, is what indigenous people call 7-generation planning. Is everybody familiar with 7-generation planning? Raise your hands if you are. Okay, good. We've got a few people familiar and a few that don't. So the indigenous believe that when you're planning a village or you're planning a community, that you need to think about, the generations before you, the current generation, and then the generations ahead of you when you're making an impact, when you're designing a structure, when you're designing a village, when you're designing a community. And so much of what we're doing in modern architecture and urban design completely forgets about what the future impact will be on civilization. And so I'm more of a macro systems thinker, and really biophilic design, what it's doing is mimicking nature, because nature has evolved a lot longer than humans, is much more intelligent. And so by mimicking nature, we can create environments that heal and that don't extract and harm us. We're creating and we're designing, what I call the American nightmare. And so instead of the American dream, where we have all this suburban sprawl, where you go from your garage to your office parking structure, you sit in front of your computer, and then you wonder why people are depressed, taking, pharmaceutical products, and then, there's such a high level of suicide and just depression. It's because we've designed for disconnection. And nature designs for working in guilds, as Paul was talking about yesterday. Why can't humans work like mycelium and work like plants, where they're in a synergistic relationship? And we have all this knowledge. Einstein said it very clearly. We have all the tools to transcend the current issues that we're experiencing. We're just not coherent as a human civilization and working together or working against each other. So nature is what heals. So the sooner we bring nature into the built environment, the sooner we're gonna feel happier and more connected.
There's actually a lot to unpack from that, especially around the actual health benefits of having nature in the room. I always make sure that we have live plants in our spaces because they make oxygen, and the more oxygen you have, the better you think. Alex, let's go to a visual of some of your projects now. And before we run the video, tell us a little bit about your work and your vision as a real estate developer.
This is our vision. We create Generation 5.0, regenerative development, where we balance the interest of the planet. It means it's regenerative for the planet, top level of sustainability, 0.7 square meter of plants vertically on the super high-rise buildings. Again, reconnect people with nature. We're thinking about the communities. It's regenerative for communities. We think about what is most important in our lives, our health, our longevity, our high performance. And so I'm 27 years a real estate developer. Main focus is real estate. So I'm 23 buildings was successfully delivered to my beautiful clients. Yeah, and I'm 22 years, I practice yoga, and I implement a lot of knowledge from our ancestors, and one of the deep knowledge is how to connect people with nature, even in the urban jungles.
Which is so important. We learned that lesson in Belém with the COP that just happened. We opened a hub there. And when you think about the Amazon, we often think about the jungle, but they talk there about the urban Amazon because there are over 10 million people living in the Amazon. And Belém, a city in the Amazon, has 3 million people. And it's crazy because you go there and it feels completely disconnected from nature in so many ways, even though it's a city built out of the jungle and it's all concrete. So I'm curious, maybe we could watch your video now and learn about how you're bringing nature into the built environment.
And maybe like few comments. So each build, we use architecture and design as a language, as a possibility to speak with outside world. And always our speech is about three main things, what should not be lost for the future generations: nature, culture, and traditions. Eywa tree of life, Eywa way of water. The tree of life looks exactly like the banyan tree with the trunks, with the roots and only with the natural materials. Glazed terracotta ceramic, the favorite material of Antonio Gaudí. So that's this how we implement, because we are responsible not only in front of us, in front of my clients, but in front of the future face of the city. And we can easily destroy people's life as a developers and can easily make them flourish. And the quality of the architecture, biophilic design, reconnection with nature, quality of the air, quality of the water, Vastu Shastra balance, activation of 9 planets with the landscaping. This is another ancient knowledge of our ancestors from point of view of Vastu Shastra. Implementation of crystals to balance energies inside.
That's one of the things, because when I met you before, we talked about the crystals. I'd like to go into that a little bit more. We actually have crystals that are arriving any minute from the Amazon for our tables that we brought from Brazil, and they're somewhere on their way. I was hoping they'd be here in time for this panel, but I want to get into that more. Let's go to the video.
Yeah.
Where did architecture begin? We have to go back in time. The first generation, shelter and survival. Architecture began from fear and our need to feel safe in the world. The earth was our mother. They carved our shelter, stone, clay, firelight. We didn't live on the land, we were of it. And this is the beginning of the pre-electric civilizations. Then came the alignment. Sacred geometry, vibration, crystal, gold. Temples were built. Sound awakened the spirit. Empires rose. Beauty was defined. Domes mirrored the heavens. Arches bent gravity into grace. And then came the age of electricity, where we discovered. But we also forgot. Steel replaced soul. Light came from wires, not stars. Our bodies endured, and our spirit dulled. And then begins the fourth generation. Sustainable, but still incomplete. We ran to heal the damage we caused, to measure, to offset. Technology learned to sustain and renew for the planet. But something is missing. Where do we go from here? Generation 5.0. Where we have brought to life regenerative architecture and holistic living ecosystems. A design philosophy that moves from real estate to conscious habitats, building on the knowledge of all that came before, integrating ancient wisdom with modern technology, from the ancient science of alignment, Ayurveda, and Vedic knowledge, to neuroscience, AI, and environmental physics that listen, adapt, remember, and heal. Sounds too good to be true? Well, it exists. Eywa signals a new species of architecture, a living, breathing, evolving presence. Every beam carries intention. Every element is tuned to the human body's natural rhythm. Quantum-enabled systems feature memory-based water, advanced air purification, sound healing, EMF shielding, Vastu Shastra, circadian lighting, and sacred geometry woven into your everyday life. Welcome to a new standard of living, working, and elevating human performance. The first ever regenerative oasis that serves humans, communities, and the planet. This is Generation 5.0, where architecture becomes conscious. It becomes regenerative.
So Alex, I mean, what a beautiful video. When I see that, I think expensive. So I wanna press you on how we can make this kind of thinking available to all. But tell us more now in your own words about your work and these buildings that you're building in Dubai, and I want to get into the crystals.
The first Eywa Tree of Life will be ready in August 2026. So, but we already finalized full structure, 10 floors, and we embedded 16 tons of 18 different type of crystals inside the structure of the building. So one of the best Vastu consultants with the history of their family in Vastu, more than 1,000 years, they calculate the allocation inside the slabs, in the center of each column. In some of the slabs, it's around 200 groups of crystals. They all connected with each other, but now...
So it's a crystal grid.
Yeah, it's inside the slabs. So we have a post-tension slabs, and the group of crystals, and they calculate allocation, some of them around the center of gravity of the building, then center of gravity of each apartment, because there is some group of the crystals which is, let's say, responsible for the balance of energies in existing apartment. And by the way, for the cost, it not cost a lot. So it's only the question, if there's only the question of sources and the question of, I can manage the cost of this building 8% higher than MR buildings in Dubai. MR, it's like the middle standard of quality / price. So that's because, again, how we think about efficiency of the facades, efficiency inside. So this is totally different even type of thinking, how we create the buildings.
Incredible. I'd like to get into a little bit more about your future plans and how you are telling the story for Eywa. Let's jump over to Tony for a minute. You have the Chosen Retreat, the Future of Cities project, and we also have involvement as partners in your community hub in Miami, which has been a real destination for innovation over the last several years. Chosen is growing. You have plans for new projects. Can you tell us about the future of your work on regenerative neighborhoods?
Absolutely. Thank you. And that was a beautiful video, and I think it's really innovative, some of the things that Alex is incorporating, Vastu architecture, for example, which is one of the oldest design philosophies that are out there. And I think, my thinking and the work that we do at Future of Cities is more neighborhood scale, city scale, global scale, because we're really focused on the 99%. And I think that how do we take these types of benefits to the people that need them the most, the people that are suffering, the people are experiencing homelessness. And I think that's really where the future of cities is focused on public-private partnership. And how do we let innovative developers come in with new thinking and work with the public sector and NGOs to create a brighter, better future for 100% of life, not just for the ultra-wealthy. And we're seeing this inaccessibility and inaffordability. And my whole career, where I started holding the inquiry around when the Future of Cities was born, was when I was one of the pioneers of the Wynwood Arts District in Miami, which is one of the most celebrated arts districts in the world. It was street artists that came, and we connected the building owners with the street artists, and then Instagram came into play, and it catapulted it to all of this fame. And I was working alongside Tony Goldman, who was one of my mentors, who started Soho in the 80s and South Beach in the 90s. And inevitably, all the artists and the creatives and the magic makers get pushed out by gentrification and commercialization. So I started to hold this inquiry is, how can we revitalize and create cities of the future that are inclusive, that are equitable, and that are sustainable, and go beyond sustainability to regeneration, and that's through co-design and co-creation. And so what we've done at the Future of Cities is we've demonstrated with my own capital the different levels of projects, from a 9-acre city of 1,000 units, from affordable housing to workforce, right through luxury, so that all people can live together again. This concept of separating the elders that I was talking earlier with Pam and Paul on, and separating the young people. No, we need to be back together, all incomes, all different backgrounds, and diversity. That's when we thrive. We know that from the plant kingdom and the mycelium kingdom, is that diversity is what creates resilience. And so we have to get back to this concept of promoting diversity and looking at cities and civilization as an ecosystem. We have a very unhealthy ecosystem right now, from transportation to health to every aspect of what we're doing. And so how do we redesign the thinking around the future of cities? And that's what regenerative placemaking aims to do. In my future book that's called Generation Regeneration, sets out a framework which we're open sourcing, that's community and culture and nature finally in balance. Those are the three pillars.
So I'd like to double click on the book for a moment. It's just out, right?
It's publishing in August. We just made the announcement, and there's going to be a big summit, which I'd love you guys all to participate in, Hub Culture to be a partner in July, of all the greatest thinker in regeneration, from regenerative agriculture to regenerative medicine to regenerative real estate. They're all interconnected. It's holistic. I think we like to silo things very easily.
Well, I'd like to ask you, actually this is for both of you, which comes first? You know, it's like the chicken and egg, community or infrastructure?
It all starts with community, because the community needs to co-design the things that you need. And so many developers come in with their own ideas, and that's neo-colonialism. When you come into a place and you say, I know better than the locals, or I know better than the culture, then that's where you go wrong right from the beginning. You need to co-design, you need to deeply listen to that place, and that's what place-based development is about. It's not about buildings, it's about the entire ecosystem. And so many people get it wrong because they're like, I'm gonna build one building and it's gonna change the world. No, it's the whole ecosystem needs to be healthy. It's the whole, how you get to work. And my dear friend Dan Buettner, who will be here later, who designed Blue Zones, is that humans are essentially lazy. And if we don't design places for people to be healthy with human connection, where you can de-emphasize the automobile and focus on, pedestrian, bicycling, and being healthy, humans are not gonna be healthy, because we're not designing for health. We're designing for sick places and dis-ease. That's the society that we currently live in.
Alex, where do you guys stand in terms of how you're building the community side?
Yes, of course. My strategy. So yes, I'm going from up. It means I have a lot of influencers, I have a lot of celebrities on board. So, and then because Eywa is a generation. This is the ecosystem of building. So it's typology of the buildings. So, and then as I reduce a little bit, like the materials, sizes, and this is like next level, business plus, offices, because I want to build full system where you can live with these conditions, with the quality, with activated living water, which we harmonize even with the sound. So that's with activated living air, with non-toxic materials, radiation-free materials, so that all facade is like, again, we think about even longevity of the buildings itself. Because this is another level of how you think about sustainable buildings, when you don't need redeveloped again and again, each 5 years, each 10 years, each 15 years, 20 years, 50 years. This building with this level of the facade and details of the facade can stand without any extra investment.
Well, I think we're learning about that in Miami right now, right?
His point, though, is not only on having buildings that are built to last for generation, but also what about the hundreds of millions of square meters of existing infrastructure that's failing, that we're just tearing down? What about all the malls in America? How are we adaptively repurposing all this infrastructure, all this concrete? That has been the fundamental core of my business, is adaptive reuse, because you're also bringing back the story of place, which is very important. Many new cities that are emerging they don't have a soul, they don't have a sense of place. And you need to really connect with that ancient wisdom. We talked about 7-generation planning. And so that's where a combination between adaptive reuse and then innovative new architecture that's built to last, but that's also built to heal.
Yes.
It's very important. Well-being is above everything else. And not only well-being of humans, but well-being of the entire planet and of all species.
And that approach, business plus, even so that the economy, it's give me only the time. We start now from 5-star hotels, from top level residential buildings, A-class offices. But now I want to create the critical mass of the influencers who is living, who is feeling what I propose, how I propose to live, and then with the next scale, and this is why we're here. So that's I need for this Eywa movement billions, and we can change in the because that even so one of my friends who bought the apartment in my building told me that is what we create the smallest blue zone on the planet in the size of the building, and I want that this type of blue zones will be in each city, but through the top it's much more easy than that make it like a movement. You know, because when can you imagine one strategy start from Zara, second strategy start from Hermès, and because of it I receive many influencers which can help me in the future to deliver the message that how it is live like that. And then only the question of time when we can replicate with this strategy millions of square meters everywhere. And even these my first clients will help me in this journey, and they are happy to do it.
You know, there is so much into this, and I think this idea that there can be these microbiomes of architecture and regenerative thinking popping up all over the world simultaneously in a way is the way that we're going to change the system. Because I think where you get to, Tony, is that system change is also part of this. It is very, very difficult to enable system change from the middle. Like, you can kind of do it from the ground up if you build a mass movement, and you can sort of do it from the top down in planning. And so with that, I want to kind of get to our final question here about where do you see this regenerative movement taking root the strongest, and where are the leading cities, the leading hubs that you see are driving this forward? Because, you know, recently I was in China. I was shocked at the changes that have happened just since the pandemic in Guangzhou and Shanghai. They're becoming much more nature-forward cities. I've never thought of Guangzhou as being a city that had nature in it. And it's shocking. Like, you go through the center of Guangzhou now, and it's all like a park. So I'm curious, like, where do you guys think in the world is leading on this movement?
So I think it's important, you know, I think largely the sustainability movement has failed. You know, I think it's failed to inspire a generation, you know, and it's become politicized and polarized. I think the only way that we transcend the current situation is that we're in is if we unify around a coherent language and a framework. And I think regeneration in medicine, in agriculture, and the built environment is that. But I also think it has the risk of becoming very trendy. And if we continue to just use buzzwords like regeneration, I think it's also going to fade away like every other movement that failed. And so regeneration starts with the individual. So that's a spiritual conscious awakening that needs to happen within the human being. And I think that happens through things like psychedelics, mushrooms, other things that we get connect, indigenous wisdom, you know, whatever it is for meditation. So I think it starts, regeneration always starts with the individual. But I think, and I'm very optimistic, that the regenerative movement, and there's leaders here like Mark Buckley, who just published a book, you know, Paul Stamets and Pam and the work that they're doing, all of this is part of the regenerative movement. My friend Nora, who's working with gut health, you know, the work that we're all doing, regenerative finance, like how does finance help not just the wealthy people? And I think that that's really important. You know, we're in a place where there's going to be a massive disruption with AI. Elon Musk says in 3 years, all jobs for humans are going to be gone. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think we're heading towards that way. We know it's going to be disruptive, and we know there's going to be civil unrest. How do we prepare human beings for the mass change that's going to happen? And I think we need to focus on the nervous system and human connection and connection to nature. So when you ask who is leading it, I think there's a global regenerative movement that's happening across all fronts. In the US, it's RFK with regenerative agriculture and really focusing on food. You know, you talked about China. China's really advancing in all kinds of technology around biophilic design. In Dubai and places in the Middle East, they're investing a lot of money in innovative architecture, primarily focused in the luxury segment, and that's fine. I think you need to attract everything. You have Shigeru Ban in Japan that's doing affordable housing, you know, and Stefano Boeri, who did Bosco Verticale, who's also doing affordable housing. I think we need to also focus on the 99% because that's where the civil unrest is coming. You can live in all the gated communities and luxury buildings of the world, but if people don't have their basic needs met, you're not going to be safe and we're not going to be in a good environment.
Alex, final word on that? Any thoughts on the places that are leading?
I think in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, yes, 100%. It's now one of the centers of the modern, for now, sustainable architecture, but it's good. It's first step. Yeah, and I told you my strategy. Let's see. So because I decide not to talk, but I decide immediately make materialization of it through my buildings. With all these ideas, with everything what is now in theory someone discuss, like I want to show it with real examples.
I love this idea of like embedding it with
and make it scalable, yes, of course, because again, special agreements with our strategic partners, like for this glazed terracotta ceramic, they give only for Eywa 60% discount for everything what we will buy in the future. So of course, in the combination of, and they have lead platinum, so we always think that our partners support us in our vision and support with some kind of their real results. So, and that's how we support the community of like-minded people. So when they supporting us, then we can build with a reasonable price, smaller sizes, and that's all. And in this case, like really much more people can afford it. But this is our strategy after 5, 7, 10 years when we can scale it in the big volume.
You know, with the icon, you'll notice that we have a point here for something that we just announced last night that we're calling care.hub. We've been thinking about how the icon can live other lives, and a scaled up version of this, you can imagine we're really looking at it for elder care. So the idea that you could have a little studio apartment in each of these pods that are above that would be independent, but then on the ground floor you would have this kind of rotunda, common kitchen, common area, and then clustering them into what we call nodes. So you put 4 or 5 or 6 together on a piece of land, and suddenly you have affordable housing. One of the interesting things that we've learned recently is that there are over 1 billion people who are going to be entering the age of like 60 to 80 in the next 10 years. And these are people who are kind of in between work and they're in between like full care, like assisted living and that kind of thing. But loneliness is a very big issue, and they need help and they need community, but there's no service for that age bracket of people. So we're really happy this week to be announcing care.hub, and our goal and initiative and hope is to be able to bring these hubs to a place and to be able to showcase solutions for affordable housing for elders. You know, in America, most citizens do not have enough money for retirement. They don't have enough money to be able to get through a longer lifespan. This hub here with our partners with Handshake and West Health, Aon, Gallup, a lot of the conversations here are going to be about longevity and about vitality and about how we live healthier lives longer. And one of the things that has been proven is that community, as you said, Tony, is one of the major factors for a blue zone. So Dan Buettner's work on blue zones.
It's number one, actually. Community starts before anything else, and it's that connection, and that's why We have the highest rates of suicide and loneliness ever in history because we don't have that connection. We've lost that. And not only are there a billion seniors that are going to be in need, but there's a billion unbanked people that are living below the poverty line. So the opportunity to scale affordable regenerative housing, and it all needs to happen. We need what you're doing. We need what you're doing. We need what we're all doing. It's not that there's one right or wrong way. There isn't a right or wrong way. Innovation is innovation. It's just about collaborating and working together and being authentic in what we're doing. And I think that it's a very exciting time too, because there's so much. I was talking to a Nobel Prize winner who was here earlier, this guy John, and he's amazing in quantum computing and how that's going to help with material sciences. So like Einstein said, the innovations are already all there. I've got a buddy who's going to be building a sanctuary on the moon over there that I met. So I mean, it's all happening, and it's all exciting, and it's all scary at the same time. So we have this opportunity. We're in this inflection point where the science is catching up with the vision, and we can really implement it, but we really have to take care of everybody along the way. And it's intergenerational is very important. In America, we put our elders in homes. We put our kids in dorms. And it's like, no, we need to go back together. We were meant to live in a village concept with people with different backgrounds, with diversity, with different socioeconomic understandings and levels, so that we can all learn and support for each other. And that's really very important. I believe in that mixed income urban planning needs to come back, and everybody needs to be on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, we need community, and that is what Hub is built on. It's what Future of Cities is built on. It sounds like that's what you're doing with Eywa. For all of us, I do believe community comes first. We're grateful for you, our community. To find out more about their work, visit Eywa. Is it eywa.com?
Yeah, Eywa.ai.
.ae.
Yeah.
So Eywa.ae for the United Arab Emirates,
And you can sign up to my Substack at Regenerative Living, or follow my Instagram at Tony Cho, and Chosen Retreat, which is at Live Chosen.
Okay.
All
and
right.
for more on care.hub, visit hubicon.co, and tune in for more from Hub Culture here at Davos 2026. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you,
Thank you.
Alex.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.